Hi, hello. So until now we have focused on one type of object which is a view component. So a custom view component was available inside the palette and you could drag and drop it inside the canvas. But we have another type of object that is also very interesting. It's the action. So in the previous video we talked about action, the refresh action. So we talked about the refresh action. So when you have a button, or actually a grid, you can assign an action to this button. Closing a view, opening a view, saving a record editor, refreshing a grid, stuff like that. But you can create your own custom action you will find here. So in our case, I'm going to show you how to create a custom action and also to use notifications. So we talked about in the previous video about custom REST APIs and custom commands. We saw the Rx notification object. So I will go faster on this one. So let's see how we can create custom actions that we can use here. So in the UI, we are going to, instead of being in the folder view components, we are going to use the folder actions. So once again, it's just a convention. You don't have to do this. It's just easier to find out your code later. So in our case, we are going to use the example show alert inside sample library. So you can see that compared to a view component, the number of files is much less. We don't have HTML files because we don't have anything to display. So we just have 3 files most of the time. We have one where we declare our action. So as you can see here, it's not view components, it's .action. This is very important, and we depend on standard lib action. So like the view components, we declare them inside module, so show alert, and ext module JS. That hasn't changed, but be very careful when you do, for example, copy paste. This is .actions. This is not .view components, and we don't implement view component. We don't depend on view component, we depend on action. So we have also a config file, and in this config file you can see it's a bit different. We are implementing the Rx action provider, but the ID is pretty much the same. We have a label, we have a bundle ID, we have input parameters. So in our case, in the show BMC Rx alert, or show alert, actually, okay, I just opened, okay. Let's open this one first. In this show alert, we have one input parameter, alert message. Then we have a service, that is basically the code. So very also important, the service name is declared here in the name. So it's a bit different than the view component. So if you want to play with actions, the best way to do it in the beginning is just copy some example code and just modify it. It's a bit different. So we have our action, and we have some things that are a bit different. So execute method is going to be executed when the action is going to be executed. And get output parameters is actually, that's where you define your output parameters. So as you can see here, instead of, if we were in a view components, my output parameters would be here. As you can see, I don't have them here. I have only input parameters. My output parameters would be output value 1 and 2. And I'm setting them here. Output value would be this value, output value 2 would be this value. So when my action is executed, I would get the message being the input parameter. And I'm just using some JavaScript pop-up to display the message, and I'm going to return 2 values. So at runtime, in custom action, if I click here, I have a pop-up with alarma. So here you could see that inside description, I guess I have alarma. So I'm just displaying the JavaScript pop-up. So one thing to know is it's possible to chain actions. And if you return a promise, the second action will only be executed if the first one is finished and is successful. If the first one returns an error, the other following action will not be executed. So in our case, we can see here that we have success. So let's display it again. Oh, this is something different. Okay. So here I'm just displaying my pop-up. So I have another example with, I was talking about BMC out of the box message. So I have another action. This time this one allows 2 input parameters. So if I'm looking inside Rx message, I have 2 input parameters, so type of message and the message itself. And inside the service, as you can see, we use Rx notification message I talked about earlier, so that will display a nice pop-up. And we have success, error, info, warning, and by default info. And this time we are not interested in returning anything, so I'm just returning an empty promise. So for example, when I click on BMC out of the box message, I'm displaying a success. But here, if I change the type to error, it will change it to error. So that's how you create a custom action. And I will show you in another example how you can do something more elaborate. So in the previous video, we showed to call Java command for using our custom resource. But I will show you how to do it from an action. So to make an action a bit more complex.